talked to Ryan Day today, expecting an offensive line announcement. Well, we did not get one. Instead, we have a quick minor injury update, and then we'll give you the latest on what we're hearing from the offensive line position. But welcome into Buckeye Cadence, the heartbeat of Ohio State athletics. My name is Blake Biscardi with Grant Kincaid alongside. So, Grant, we met with Ryan Day earlier today. We got some updates. We have some players who have shed their black stripes. There was a minor injury we need to discuss. And then some backup quarterback controversy, question mark. So we got a lot of things that we're going to get into today. But Grant, you're hearing Ryan Day, he mentioned, and this is something that you and I had talked about off air throughout the week, is that Austin Saraville did miss a handful of practices, and they are expecting to get him back this week. So that has put a little bit of a monkey wrench in Ohio State's offensive line combination, because this whole thing has been, let's get our best five. We know there's a lot of depth at the position for the Buckeyes, and Austin Saraville can move around. So not having him in practice appears that it's delaying this process and seeing who's going to win this battle between Ian Moore, Josh Padilla, potentially Gabe Van Sickle. So, Grant, you're hearing Ryan Day say today, Austin Saraville missed practices. We're going to get him back next week. What does that say to you? Do you think it gave more opportunities for one of those guys to step up like Ian Moore or Josh Padilla? Do you think Ohio State probably has the idea in their mind already about the direction that they want to go, but they want Austin back on the field just to confirm that? You know, when you heard Ryan Day say that today, where did your mind first go hearing those comments?
Well, I feel like they are definitely confident in Saraville, compared to everyone else on that line right now. It seems like from the way that, Day and Arthur have been talking, that, Saraville is pretty well entrenched in that line in one spot or another, because they said they've been able to move him around, and he's been effective each and every time. So I think it is an opportunity for other guys to get reps and opportunities. Like we said, there's Padilla, Ian Moore, Gabe Van Sickle, three guys right off the top of your head that all could be filling a spot that needs to be filled this year, and have been waiting in the wings for years on end, at this point. So I think it is, in one way, a positive for the line. You never want to have a stalwart on your offensive line get hurt, but at least it is in fall camp. And I think it's promising that, they let him rest for a few days. They let him get fresh. It's the second week of August, so they know they have a little bit of time. But as Ryan Day said, they're also in a race against time to figure
Right.
these spots out. So I think it's good in the sense that they do get to evaluate those guys, and throw them in different spots without Saraville in there, and see how they gel together right now.
It's almost like that blessing in disguise for those guys
Yeah.
where, okay, you're going to make the best of the situation because we know Austin Saraville is going to start. We talked about it the other day. Arthur Smith talked about it, which was the comments we were referencing, that he's a four-position player, which means he has the potential to play everywhere but center on the offensive line. Now, he does have his strengths of a position. If he's going to be on the left side, potentially they put him on the right side. I don't really think that that's likely, because if I were the coaching staff, I would want my best offensive lineman on my quarterback's blind side, but that's just me. And again, that's most likely what's going to happen here. Then you just plug in likely Ian Moore to me on that offensive line there. But Grant, do you think, and again, we kind of debated this the other day, that Gabe Van Sickle could potentially have an argument to climb the depth chart to play? Do you think it's Josh Padilla? Because Josh Padilla's name continues to come up in fall camp as well. And I think that's the other thing too, that yes, there's a battle here, but there's also depth. Because if there wasn't depth, would this really still be a battle if it was just, okay, well, we know that Ian Moore is going to play, or we know that Josh Padilla is going to be the guy, even though Austin Saraville has not been on the field, we still have an idea that this is the direction that's going to go. So we can just go ahead and name the starting offensive line now because these other guys aren't ready. But that doesn't appear to be the case. We have heard Tyler Bowen, Arthur Smith, Ryan Day, and other various offensive personnel say that there's a lot of depth up front for the Buckeyes, which is a good thing. But at the same time, you got to find your best five. So, Grant, that circles all the way back to that question. Do you think that it is going to be Ian Moore, or do you think that there's still an argument to be made here for Padilla or Van Sickle?
I think at this point, especially with Saraville out, like we've been talking about, this is the week or the 2 week stretch where those three guys are going to be able to prove themselves to the staff. So At this point, it's between Ian Moore and Padilla, it's hard because, like you said, you've heard Padilla's name come up so much. The coaches like what they see from him, but Ian Moore, he continues to get the reps that would lead you to believe that he has a better shot at taking that spot. So I would imagine those two guys, Padilla and Moore, have the best shot right now to be filling in that spot. Probably have Van Sickle as more of a sixth man, if you will, somebody who's going to rotate in and out throughout the game, give guys rest, or be there because, like you said, there's depth on this line. So to have him as a so-called weapon to bring in whenever you need would be useful for Ohio State. But I would probably say that Padilla and Moore are in the 1A spot right now to fill that spot.
And because too, it's all about your best five, is what they're saying. And again, it's that flexibility of Cerebral, which feels like the ad nauseum thing to say with this offensive line. But then, Greg, you also asked that question too. If Ian Moore and Josh Padilla are pushing this hard, are we sure that the top four offensive linemen are the same four offensive linemen that we saw last year? Like, is there a world that exists where maybe Philip Daniels is also in a position battle right now? Like, do we think that that could be possible? That's something that maybe not everyone's considering, because you're like, okay, well, we return 4 or 5 offensive line starters. If you're the Ohio State coaching staff thinking that way, and you're like, okay, we only need to fill one. But if you look about this from the outside, you step back and say, hey, we're really evaluating every single position here, not just where do these depth pieces insert into that starting five. Maybe Philip Daniels is also in a battle. Maybe he's not. There are just the things that you think about. So do you think that a world exists where maybe Philip Daniels is also in a battle here on the other side of that offensive line? Or do you think it is pretty much certain that he's going to be the fourth starter and then they're just trying to figure out that fifth position?
I think the world always exists that you could be in a position battle at Ohio State, especially on a team like this. The coaches have talked about ad nauseum how deep this team is in so many positions, including the offensive line. Even today. So I think that it's entirely possible. I think after the way that last season ended, it ought to be possible for each and every guy. It's just how it's going to have to be for the next few weeks, and especially on a line that is so far under the microscope right now for the team. You can't be too sure that your spot is going to be safe if you're anybody on that line right now. Maybe Hinsman and Montgomery have some of the safer spots on the team, but it's like you said, the coaching staff has brought up names constantly, like Padilla and Moore, as being guys that are coming to take spots essentially, and the reps would tell you that as well, just the way that it's working out. So I wouldn't be too confident in any one combination at all on the offensive line right now.
And even with guys like Carter Lowe and Sam Greer, they're guys that you're looking at. And in the spring, they were forced to take reps against the first and the second team defense. All of a sudden, you see Kenyatta Jackson opposite of you, and you're like, holy smokes, just coming in as a young guy. But when you have guys out either for precautionary reasons or for injuries, those are some of the opportunities that pop up. And then again, you get to show what you're made of, because you come to Ohio State expecting to be in a position battle at all times because of the talent level that is constantly acquired by the Buckeyes. And Grant, too, when you have an offensive line, and Arthur Smith needs a good offensive line to operate his offense in a good way because he likes to run the football. And there's been a lot of buzz about Isaiah West, and there's been a handful of questions coming out about Bo Jackson as to why is he with the twos? Why is he not getting first-team reps? And then all of a sudden, you're sitting in this like, wait a second, is Isaiah West going to push to be RB1? Is it possible that Isaiah West is going to start over Bo Jackson after Bo Jackson had over 1,000 yards as a true freshman, and then he had a really strong close to the end of the season, showcasing his stuff against Michigan, that famous stutter step run on the outside. But then today, Ryan Day steps to the podium, and when he talks about standouts, Bo Jackson, one of the first names that he mentions. Ohio State scrimmaged on Saturday, and it started to rain a little bit, and he said he was proud of the offense because normally it's a disaster for the offense in that first scrimmage, because especially if weather comes in where things are just not clean. But he said the veteran presence of the offense really helped with that in that scrimmage on Saturday. And then he went right to Bo Jackson, where he's talking about he's had a really good start to fall camp, and that might be contrary to the intel that has been put out. But I think, Grant, this is more of a case where two things are true. Yes, Isaiah West has leveled up and will play meaningful snaps for the Buckeyes this year, and it will be a 1-2 punch. But I think today it was reassuring for the Ohio State fans to hear that Bo Jackson is still RB1, and he's as advertised right now. And when Ryan Day was talking about him, the big issue with Bo Jackson, one, you got to be good in space. But at the second level, you've got to make guys miss. You either got to get around them or you got to run through them. Those are the two options that they give their running backs at Ohio State. And I know they do that elsewhere too. But Bo Jackson, he said the biggest difference that he's made is how he is in the second level. And I think that's the big thing. If you're watching this press conference as an Ohio State fan and you're listening and saying, okay, how can I trust that this team's going to be different? How can we trust that we haven't seen the ceiling of this Ohio State team because of all the pieces that come back on the offense? Yes, guys age and they get older and they have more snaps and more experience underneath their belt. But how is the game going to look different? Bo Jackson needed to add this to his game as a running back, just like Julian Sain had to add his legs and being able to create in space and not being afraid to lower his shoulder and fight for tough yards. So did Bo Jackson, and it appears that he has done that. So how much does that mean to the offense, Grant, to hear that from Coach Day today, sitting there saying, you know what, Bo Jackson has had a great start to the fall, and he's still tracking to be RB1, and he's made these adjustments to his game where he has taken a step forward, especially in getting to the second level to really create those home run plays and not just say, all right, we're getting tackled at first contact.
I think it's really reassuring. It's, Bo was always going to be RB1 until we were proven otherwise. Obviously, he had a standout season last year. He didn't do anything necessarily to tell us that he couldn't be good again or take a next step necessarily. I think just that first week from Isaiah West was just so outstanding. And he stood out in the passing game in a way that we hadn't seen from any running back. So, of course, heads started churning and saying, could this be the dynamic guy that we're looking for? But it would be crazy to say that, oh, now that Bo Jackson is playing so well, we're not in as good a position because, well, now we have two guys that are that are completely outdoing themselves and appear to be taking that next step. But, the staff, Lachlan and Day and so on, have been talking about since spring the importance of being able to run in that second level and be able to, like you said, hit a home run and take over games with the way that you're running the ball, because that is something that, Ohio State could effectively run most of the time. But they weren't scaring teams into respecting the run, and I think that's what Day is looking for. And obviously, Arthur Smith is going to aid in doing that. But I think he needs someone, Blake, that is going to come into the game and take attention off Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin and so on and so forth. And I think he has two guys that can do that right now. So it's great. It's great that Bo is showing that already.
Grant, right to your point that we're saying those two guys that can come in and be that workhorse 1-2 punch for Ohio State. Someone else that Ryan Day mentioned too was Jacoby Jackson, the transfer coming in from Florida. And he also said that Coach Lachlan wants to have three guys. And so when we talk about three running backs, what three running backs was Coach Day talking about? He was talking about Bo Jackson 1, Isaiah West 2, Jacoby Jackson 3. And in that same breath of talking about Bo Jackson stepping up and having such a good open to fall camp, he also said that Isaiah and Jacoby are right there. They're right behind him moving. So that's a good indicator for that room. And then you're also sitting there, well, like, Blake, Legend Bay's in that room. Mm-hmm. Yes, we know, but Legend Bay is also a freshman. And Legend Bay also missed time in the spring and early in fall camp for violating team rules. So he's behind and missing those snaps there. But later on in that press conference, Ryan Day came right back to it when he was asked about the freshmen and say, hey, coach, what freshmen can we expect to see this year? Because that redshirt rule is completely out the window. So there's no concern of, well, this guy's going to redshirt. Well, maybe this guy is. Are we going to burn this eligibility? It's no. If you're good enough, you're getting on the field. And he said that you're going to see the young receivers play. Some of those guys are definitely going to play, and I'm sure he's referring to their Chris Henry Jr., the Brock Boyds of the world, Gillard, Bell, like all those young guys to go ahead and get on the field. But then you look to the defensive side of the ball, you're hearing Jay Timmons. And then all of a sudden we got to Legend Bay. He goes, as the season wears on, like you will see Legend Bay. So the talent's there for him, and everyone can see that. It's just about getting him up to game speed and being ready. But again, this running back room, Grant, is so deep with those 5 guys that you look at and you say, all right, if Legend Bay's not out there September 1st, Ohio State opens their season September 5th. So if he's not out there in the beginning of September, it's okay. He has a talent. That room is deep enough, and they're going to go ahead and find ways to get him on the field because Ryan Day was saying he is good enough. And just going back to Bo Jackson, just to tie this up with a bow, like in my notes from the press conference, I'm seeing Ryan Day talk about his reads, how he's hitting the holes, and then again, getting to the second level. So his vision has improved. He's understanding the game a little bit better. He's seeing the game better. And again, Grant, going back to the offensive line, that group is solid up front. They get that short up, and then Bo Jackson has elevated his game to this level. And now you start to see, okay, plus Arthur Smith and his impact in running the football, could Ohio State really be a strong running team this year? Like, do you think that they could rush for 150, 200 yards a game? That might be a little bit of a stretch to get to 200. But I think it's fair to say that Ohio State can average at least 150 yards running the football this season. What do you think when you look at how Ryan broke down the running back room today, and then you pair that with the offensive line and knowing Arthur Smith, like what does that say to you? What were your takeaways from hearing that about the running back room today at depth?
Well, I think it's the bread and butter of the offense, and they want it to be that way. We've talked a lot about Arthur Smith and kind of how he's come in and changed the identity of the offense in some ways. Having that depth at running back is paramount, especially for an offense like this. So I think obviously that's great news for Ohio State. But secondly, if they're able to run the ball, like you said, for that 150 to 200 yards a game, and keep guys fresh in the same realm, even though they are deep, you want Isaiah and Bo to be able to stay fresh, and I know they have snap counts for that. But it transforms this offense into something that, when you look ahead and see the schedule, especially the back end of that schedule, if you have something like that you can lean on, all of a sudden it becomes a lot less treacherous and a lot more doable for Ohio State to navigate a schedule like this. So I think it's paramount to be able to run the ball like that at the end of the day.
And Grant, that's a perfect point there. You're talking about how difficult that schedule is for Ohio State. And we know how good the defense was for the Buckeyes a year ago. It's a top unit in the country. And you lose all that production out there. And Ryan Day, there was a point in the press conference where he was asked about that. And he was like, well, the standard's the standard. He's like, they're expecting to be the best defense in the country. You don't rebuild anything around here. If you reload, that's the goal, is you reload, because the standard is the standard. And Grant, when you have a defense that's that good, and you lose that production, you have a defense that's projected to still be good. What can help a defense still be good? Ball control. If you could run the football, it's almost just as good as having a reliable defense, because let's say the defense needs a rest for a minute and the offense can run the football and they can get first downs and they can chew the clock a little bit and they can possess the football. They get up on Texas. Let's say they're in Austin week 2. They get up on Texas and they need to close the game. Well, it's not just the defense's job to close the game. Like, primarily, yes. But if Ohio State can play ball control offense, if they can find a way to run the football on Texas, and there's 9 minutes left in the game, and Ohio State's they're up by 7. You know what? We need a 6-minute drive here. And it can end in 3 or it can end in 6, but we need a 6-minute drive here. And the offense can go out and do that without having to throw the football every single play or 2 of the 3 downs in a series. That's a huge asset for the Ohio State offense, because you know the weapons outside. And again, the more you run the football, the more defense have to commit resources to doing what, Grant? Stopping the run, which means hi Jeremiah Smith, hi Devin McEwen, hi Brandon Innes. It opens up so much for the offense when you're able to run the ball that effectively. But again, sticking on this note of offense and battles and rooms, Grant, is there a controversy at backup quarterback? Because we learned today from Ryan Day, and it's been speculated a little bit. We saw at practice, especially on Saturday, how hard Tavian St. Clair was being coached. There were a couple missed throws, a couple botched snaps, and then immediately there was one with Legend Bay and Tavian St. Clair in particular where Tavian St. Clair got a talking to immediately. He got thrown on a lap. I mean, it was within seconds of that play ending. He was already running a lap. And then Lachlan's up in Legend's face. It didn't look so much that it was Legend Bay's fault. But again, you're both taking part in that play. The standard's a standard. You're running. And you're going to get coached for it. But Tavian St. Clair's being coached really hard. And he hasn't looked as clean in the fall as you probably would have hoped, especially the way that he ended the spring. We saw him flash in the spring game. And he did play well in the spring. But this hasn't quite been what maybe some had hoped for him in the fall, because you're always one play away from playing as a backup. And the backup quarterback at Ohio State is one of the most important positions in football, as evidenced in 2014 there. But now Luke Fahey lost his black stripe on Saturday, and Ryan Day said that he's giving him a real push. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to be the backup, but if he's giving him a push, is that saying more, do you think, about Luke? Or is that talking about maybe Tavian's not quite there yet, and there's a bigger gap between Julian Sayin and Tavian St. Clair than we maybe have anticipated there?
Well, I think both ways. Obviously, Fahey has overperformed plenty in fall. I think there's a reason why Day has been high on him, and he lost his black stripe and so on and so forth. But I think it's speaking more to the tune of a standard that the coaching staff is holding Tavian St. Clair to. A very high-end 5-star recruit with a frame and an arm that is perfect at quarterback. Somebody who obviously they see projected down the future being the future of Ohio State football. So at this point, when you're like, well, Sayin's obviously our guy, St. Clair has some development left. Like you said, this fall, I saw a lot of the same things that you did, just not polished as much as you would expect him to be at this point. And that's not to say that he's bad or can't be good. I think that kids have all the pressure in the world on them at times. And he just looks like he tries to do too much. He's trying to make throws off balance, on the run, downfield, across the body. To a point, you're trying to coach that high school mentality out of someone, and let them be more of a reader of defenses and someone who can methodically operate an offense. And he's just going through some growing pains right now. And I think what Day's comments today are more of a way to motivate Tavian, more of a way to push him in the right direction, to light a fire under him, because the staff obviously sees the potential in Tavian. So to your point, Blake, I think it's more them trying to facilitate the right kind of mentality for Tavian heading into this year.
Right, and that's a good point too. He's a Bell Fountain product. The state of Ohio knows him well. The program knows him well. And again, that potential inside of Tavian St. Clair is undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that they're trying to coach out of him. You know what? And you have to do that something. You've got to coach guys hard. You've got to unlock that next level inside them. You got to unlock the competitor. You got to unlock the fire and the lion inside of those guys. And that seems like what they're trying to do to Tavian, because it's inside of him. It's got to come out. It's got to go into the field. He's got to learn to trust himself, learn to trust the offense, and learn to operate the offense. That's, again, one of those big things. But Grant, let's take a quick pause, because we got to remind everybody about a special event that we have coming out at Dick's House of Sport on Saturday, August 29th, Grant. 2 weeks from Saturday, we are going to be bringing back TSB Live to Tailgate Takeover. We're going to kick off football season at Dick's House of Sport in Polaris, Ohio. Make sure that you are, one, clicking this link in the description, screenshotting this QR code on the screen to register for it, just so we know that you're coming. But this is going to be an event for the entire community. Bring your family, bring your friends. Let's kick off football season together, because it's in the air. We've been talking about it, and now we have an event to go ahead and celebrate that before toe hits leather on September 5th in the Horseshoe. This is going to be an event that has all of your tailgate favorites. There's going to be plenty of experiences in the store for your friends and your family. It's going to have all the goodies, all the gear that you need for the season, from the tailgate to the seat. Dick's House of Sport has you covered with everything you need. There's going to be giveaways, guests. Brandon Bowen, former Ohio State offensive lineman, is going to return to join us again. Great friend of the program. We're excited to bring him back. So this is going to be an absolute blast to kick off football season here at Dick's House of Sport in Polaris, Ohio on Saturday, August 29th from 12 to 3. We cannot wait to see you guys there to kick off football season together. Grant, we'll continue on in the show, and let's flip a little bit to the defensive side of the ball here. So Kari Wilder also lost his black stripe today, and he's somebody that we've been looking at since the spring as someone who could step up for Ohio State as a young player. Jay Timmons has gotten plenty of buzz. And so, Grant, when you see a guy like Kari Wilder shedding his black stripe through 9 practices in camp and the impact that he could have on that defensive line, that is probably going to be by committee early in the season until guys start establishing reps. Then you have guys like Jay Timmons. And again, these are product of, hey, we don't have to worry about redshirting anymore. But you look at this defense and all the playmakers and all the depth, and you see so many names. Grant, we've talked about so many names in the secondary. It's hard to remember what combination is really the one that's going to be the first team defense because of how many different versions they've played, because this personnel grouping on defense from Matt Patricia can cover so many different versions of offensive personnel. They have the ability to put 3 linebackers on the field. They have the ability to play with 5 DBs. They have the ability to stand up Quay Rusall as an edge, similar to like an Arvell Reese, to bring him onto the field in a rushman package. But you see all this depth, and Grant, something Ryan Day talked about today was, we know we have the depth, but who's going to step up and make the plays? Who's going to be somebody that we can count on this season to go ahead and make those plays in big moments? When we need somebody the most, who's going to step up? And as you look at this defense and all the depth that it has, who's somebody that you're watching that can step up and make plays and become a playmaker for this Ohio State defense that does have so much talent? But again, you need a guy that you can count on. You need a guy where it's 3rd and 6. They've got to either come off the edge. You need somebody, if there's a guy in space and it's one-on-one, he's got to make that tackle. He's got to break up that pass. Who's your player that you're watching on defense to step up?
I think Christian Allegro is essential this year, especially obviously replacing the linebacker core that Ohio State lost to the NFL draft. He's someone that hasn't gotten crazy buzz in camp, but he has been steady, and the coaching staff has trusted him since the moment he stepped on campus. So I think when you have someone like him that you bring in and you see that he has the frame and the ability to rush the passer, to be able to get into the backfield and record TFLs, he's shown the ability to be inside, outside, wherever you need him to be. I think he's going to be an enormous piece for this defense. Him and Quay Rusall are going to be all over the place, it sounds like. But I think Allegro he's stepping into a huge role, which I'm sure he knows. But he's a guy who Ohio State is going to be depending on massively this season.
And that's why they brought him in from Wisconsin to help that linebacker room out. Grant, there's a lot of depth in that linebacker room. And we've heard that TJ Alford and Riley Pettijohn are pushing close, to getting on the field. And there's going to be packages where they are on the field with Allegro and Peyton Pierce. But then also at the same time, Grant, it's wrapped inside this big question for this defense of how do you get pressure on the quarterback? And Allegro is going to help with that too. And somebody that I'm watching more so targeted to that question is Kenyatta Jackson. And it might seem like an obvious layup softball answer here. But at the same time, I need you guys to really think about this. Like, Kenyatta Jackson has to step up this year. He came back to be that guy. He came back to be a leader on the defense. You may not always hear his voice, but Kenyatta Jackson came back so he could turn into that guy, the one that Ohio State depends on, the anchor of a defensive line unit, the guy that burst off the edge with great speed and can put pressure on the quarterback, can affect the quarterback, can hurry the quarterback, can get a sack when you need to, can come off the edge and tackle the running back before that play even gets developed. I'm not saying he needs to be Chase Young or Nick Bosa, but he needs to be a guy that you can rely on off the edge and say, okay, he is on the field for a reason. Kenyatta Jackson has to be schemed for. He has put on muscle, he's put on some strength, and which are the same thing, but he has transformed his body a little bit too, in that sense where he's got to be
He
able to
looks
get to
good.
the
He
field.
looks good. That's what we're
Right.
saying.
Yes. So you can see him, all the work that's been put in where, yes, guys, sometimes they come back to school and they're like, okay, I'm going to step up. And then they just don't. But a guy like Kenyatta Jackson, you saw the season ended last year and he had a decision to make. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to come back to school. He's backed up that decision of coming back to school physically by making sure that his body's in the right shape and that his mind is in the right place. And so now he just got to show that on the field. And that was the other part that they talked about too, is these guys are flashing in fall camp. They're performing well in practice, but you still got to go put it on the field. And I think that if Kenyatta Jackson can go put it on the field, it's going to take a little bit of that load off of a Bo Atkinson or a Zion Grady or an Edric Houston or a James Smith or a Quay Rousseau when he's coming into the game as an edge. It's going to take a little bit off of them and just allow them to play a little bit more free instead of like, oh, I got to step up and make the play because this guy's not doing it. It's no, I'm going to also help make the play because there's multiple guys who can go ahead and do that. So there are two that I'm looking at. And Grant, I know you're a big Earl Little guy. So when you look at his game and what he's bringing to this defense, he started in the spring playing a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, a little bit more involved, some slot, nickel corner. He's on the backside with Jalen McClain. Now, those two are going to hold it down on the back end. How valuable is it to have a guy like Earl Little on the defense too?
It's incredibly valuable, especially because from the moment he came in, they were talking about his leadership abilities. And when you lose a guy like Caleb Downs, you need to replace that leadership. You need to find a voice like that in the secondary again. And it sounds like, from everything, from even hearing Earl Little speak himself, it sounds like Ohio State has got that in Earl Little Jr. And that's obviously great for Ohio State's defense to have that leadership. But second to that is the fact that the guy can move, like you said, move into the nickel, move back to the safety spot, probably either safety spot, and make it easier on Matt Patricia and his staff to assemble the right kind of formations and defense that I'm sure he's cooking up right now with all the depth that he has and all the tools that he has. So it's definitely invaluable to have a guy like Earl Little who you could bring in as a transfer. He's only been in the program for what, 6 months? It's maybe 7 months. So to have him come in and make that kind of impact right away, that has to be a load off of the coaching staff's shoulders. And I think that's again, it's invaluable for Patricia and his staff.
Right. And since Earl Little has gone to the backside with Jalen McClain, they're two veteran guys who are going to step up and help be leaders on the defense. And then Grant, him moving off of that slot nickel position, it has opened the door for a guy like Jay Timmons to see some action there. And today, Ryan did describe him as super competitive. He is edgy and he plays with really good instincts. And as a young player, to be described that way really speaks to the caliber of player that Jay Timmons is. Now, he might not play 60 snaps a game, but it tells you when he's on the field that he's a guy that they trust. He's a guy that's earned his way there. He's a guy that's performing well so far from the spring all the way to the fall. There's a level of consistency to it, and that's something that you want to see. So, again, lots of positives to look at on this defense for Ohio State, and the more that we hear about it, the more you start building some confidence in this unit being, again, a top unit in the country. Again, it might not be number one, it might not be number three, but it's going to be among those top units in the country if it can reach its potential, but it's got to have those guys contributing and stepping up. And then, Grant, we'll end the show with this. One of the big news drops from Friday was Senior Day. Senior Day is being moved from the final home game of the regular season. This year it would be against Michigan to week 1. And some of the traditionalists can go back and be like, why are you moving Senior Day? Why are you changing tradition? Why are you doing this? But just, again, we pause. We'll get to the opinions on that because I understand that there's strong arguments on both sides. But Grant, we saw a couple years ago when Ohio State celebrated Senior Day in 2024 against Michigan. Yes, the seniors lost, but it's supposed to be your final home game. And then they went and played Tennessee in the playoff because they had to host a game. So there was one more game in the shoe. So I do think that Senior Day and that final game has taken a little bit of a different meaning now, the way college football continues to change. And that moment can be a distraction. That was part of what Day was saying when he was talking about is we just want to eliminate all the distractions as possible. And he referenced before that it's different now and that there were guys who celebrated Senior Day and then they went ahead and played again, or some guys walked in Senior Day last year and here they come again this year. And he said that the idea was presented to him by the administration, and then they explored that a little bit. But then before they made the decision, they brought it to the seniors. And they said, hey, what do you guys think about doing this in week 1? And he said there was quick nods of yes. And so, Grant, when you see news like this, it's different. It's not something that I don't think anyone has done before to now begin the season, start it off right, set the tone with this being Senior Day. We're going to recognize you. We're going to celebrate you. We're going to thank you for all that you've done. And then we're going to go start the season. So what's your reaction when you saw that Senior Day news from Ohio State changing from the Michigan game to week 1?
Well, I think it's an interesting move. It's definitely something that came a little bit out of the blue. How many years have we seen Senior Day be every other year against Michigan and take on that much more of a meaning for the guys? So I think it's going to be a little bit different, but like Day said, especially with a schedule like this, and the way that the Michigan game has gone in the past 5 or 6 years, it's probably not a bad idea to eliminate some distractions and eliminate some of the emotions that come with Senior Day and all the festivities and the distraction that comes with celebrating something like that during a big game at a very essential part of the season. So it's not the worst idea. I definitely see where they're coming from with it. And I think, like you said, it's week 1, it sets the tone for the season. Right away, you honor your seniors. They feel recognized. You kind of get that over with before you start into a schedule. So I think it's a pretty good idea. And like everything else in college football nowadays, it's just another little change.
Well, that too, Grant, and something else Coach Day said, just on the note of distraction, where you think back about this to what's changed in that final week of the regular season for the Buckeyes is now Senior Day is moving to week 1. You have the band that would traditionally come in and play that week. That's been moved. Senior tackle has been moved. And all that is to keep the focus on the game because there's enough distractions everywhere. Ryan Day has been a big routine guy. Routine has been very important to him and to this team and to the staff. And this looks like another version of, hey, we need to keep the routine for game week. Because last year it wasn't against Michigan. It was the week before. This year it would be against Michigan because every other year it rotates home and away. But what do you think? Do you think that Senior Day makes that big of a difference in the Michigan game? Or do you think it's just better overall that it's week 1?
It's probably better overall. I think now the weeks leading up to Michigan, you can prepare for Michigan, the football game, and not really have to think about or worry about anything else, which I think is, that's what they and the administration were thinking about is, as we head into the schedule, let's make it as easy as possible to make things the status quo, especially that part of the season. So I think it's not a bad move. I think they're thinking with some foresight here, and I think it should pay off for Ohio State.
I actually think so too. I took time to process that and digest it, but I'm with you. I think that this is one of those moves where it may feel weird now, but you look back and be like, okay, I can get behind that. That made sense. That was a good decision. So we'll see. But I think that is one of those moves where we're going to look back on and say, you know what, that was well done by the administration and by the staff there. So that will do it for today's episode of Buckeye Cadence, guys. We appreciate you tuning into the show as always. Make sure that you are liked and subscribed to the YouTube channel and to all of the other platforms that you consume your podcasts. Make sure you're following Buckeye Cadence and that you're making sure that you're tuned into the playlist here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Silver Bulletin, and then on social media, the handle's at T Silver Bulletin on all platforms. Grant, where can everyone find your coverage of Ohio State?
At Kincaid8 everywhere. I'm going to just change my X username to Kincaid8, so no more confusion.
All right, there we go. Grant staying Kincaid across the board now.
Yeah.
Then if you want to see my profile anywhere, it's at Blake Biscardi. But guys, we appreciate you tuning into the show and for all the support. Again, make sure that you're liking and subscribing. Share the show with a friend. And again, Dick's House of Sport, August 29th from 12 to 3. TSB Live returns, previewing the entire Ohio State football season. We cannot wait to be there with you, meet you guys in person, and have this event. It's going to be a great time. And guys, football season is almost here. So until next time, I am Blake Biscardi. That is Grant Kincaid. God bless.